Zaxathor stood at the observation deck of the cloaked Drachnid warship Superior Mind *, his four eyes blinking in asynchronous patterns of disbelief. The blue-green planet below seemed almost peaceful, if you could ignore the constant flashes of what these primitives called warfare dotting its surface. "Would you look at that?" he chittered to himself, mandibles clicking in amusement. "They're still using chemical propellants to launch metallic projectiles. How quaint." He zoomed in his ocular enhancers on a military base in what the humans designated as North America. The sight of wheeled vehicles and jet aircraft nearly sent him into a fit of laughter. "Enjoying the view, Senior Tactical Officer?" Commander Yulthra's resonant voice caused Zaxathor's dorsal spines to stiffen instinctively. The commander's iridescent carapace reflected the soft blue glow of the ship's interior lighting as she glided across the deck. "My apologies, Commander." Zaxathor performed the traditional gesture of respect, crossing his secondary arms while keeping his primary limbs at rest. "I was just observing their military capabilities." He couldn't keep the amusement from his voice synthesizer. "Do share your assessment." Yulthra's head tilted, her antenna twitching with interest. "They're still in their technological infancy, Commander. Their most advanced weapon systems rely on primitive radar technology we mastered 5 centuries ago. Their communications networks are pathetically vulnerable to our quantum disruptors, and their armor," he gestured at a column of tanks moving across a desert. "They're still using metallic alloys, not a single photon deflective shield in sight." Commander Yulthra's mandibles curved in what passed for a smile among their species. The High Command's decision to classify them as a Type 2 civilization was generous. She activated a holographic display showing Earth's military installations. "Their nuclear weapons are their only concerning feature, and our planetary shield network will neutralize those immediately." "The invasion force seems excessive," Zaxathor noted, examining the deployment plans floating before them. 10,000 warriors for a species that hasn't even developed basic gravitational manipulation? The commander's secondary eyes narrowed. "Standard protocol, Senior Tactical Officer, though I share your assessment. The Drachnid Empire has conquered worlds far more advanced than this one." She waved a limb dismissively at Earth. "Their most advanced AI would barely qualify as a maintenance drone in our society." "At least it will be entertaining." Another officer, Krivax, joined them, his battle armor gleaming. "Did you know they still engage in something called hand-to-hand combat? They actually touch each other during battle." His horrified amusement set off a wave of chittering laughter across the bridge. "Primitive or not," Commander Yulthra's voice cut through the merriment, "we begin the operation at dawn. Their major population centers will be our primary targets. Zaxathor, you'll lead the ground assault on their largest military installation." "It will be my pleasure, Commander." Zaxathor's mandibles clicked with anticipation. "Though I doubt I'll need anything more than a standard pulse rifle. These humans and their projectile weapons—" He trailed off, making a sound that approximated a snort. Little did they know, as they orbited high above Earth in their technological marvel of a ship, that their greatest mistake wasn't underestimating humanity's weapons. It was underestimating humanity itself. The quantum pulse rippled across Earth's atmosphere like a silent thunderwave. In military bases worldwide, screens went dark. Missiles lost their guidance systems. Fighter jets became expensive paperweights. Even the humble smart toaster stopped doing its one job properly. Lieutenant Jessica Chen was in the middle of her morning PT session with her unit at Remote Base Echo, somewhere in the mountains that everyone conveniently forgot existed, when every piece of electronics simultaneously decided to throw a tantrum. "Well, that's new," she muttered, watching her fitness tracker spiral into digital chaos. The distant sound of helicopters sputtering to emergency landings punctuated her observation. Her radio crackled once, then died with what she could have sworn was an apologetic whimper. Above the planet, the Drachnid command crew was practically throwing a party. Well, as much of a party as a species of highly militaristic insectoids could throw, mostly consisting of synchronized mandible clicking and formal acknowledgements of tactical superiority. "Phase 1 completed beyond expectations," Krivax announced, his carapace practically glowing with pride. "Their primitive electromagnetic devices didn't even register our quantum disruptor. It's like watching a carbon-based lifeform bring a pointy stick to a plasma fight." Commander Yulthra's antenna twitched in satisfaction. "Launch the drop pods. Let's show these humans what real warfare looks like." Zaxathor, preparing his assault team, couldn't help but add, "Perhaps we should document this for the military academy. How to conquer a pre-space civilization in 3 easy steps." The resulting chittering laughter echoed through the deployment bay. Back at Base Echo, Chen was already adapting to the new reality. 10 years of marine training had taught her that when technology fails, humans excel. She watched as her soldiers instinctively fell back on their basic training, organizing into defensive positions without needing radio communication. "Listen up," she bellowed, her voice carrying across the compound. "Whatever knocked out our tech isn't terrestrial, we're going old school. Rodriguez, get the bolt-action rifles from the museum display. Thompson, I want every bow from the recreational facility. Johnson, remember that weird hobby of yours about medieval warfare? Today's your lucky day." Her soldiers moved with practiced efficiency, even as the first Drachnid drop pods began piercing the atmosphere, leaving trails of green fire in their wake. Chen couldn't help but smile as she watched Private Johnson practically skip toward the armory where his personally forged sword collection was stored. "Ma'am," Sergeant Wu called out, pointing skyward. "They're landing at every major military installation, except ours." Chen's grin turned predatory. Guess they didn't think a remote training facility was worth their time. Their mistake. The first Drachnid ground forces landed at Fort Bradley, expecting to find panicked, disorganized humans scrambling without their precious technology. Instead, they found an eerily quiet welcome. Zaxathor, leading the vanguard, felt his first twinge of unease. "Spread out," he ordered his troops. "These primitives must be hiding in their bunkers, paralyzed with fear." A young Drachnid soldier, fresh from the academy, activated his advanced sensor suite. "Sir, I'm detecting no electronic signatures, no communications, no weapon systems, no active vehicles. It's like they've reverted to the Stone Age." The Drachnids moved forward cautiously, their anti-gravity propulsion units humming softly. Their advanced armor gleamed in the morning sun, a testament to their technological superiority. Each soldier carried enough firepower to level a small city, backed by targeting systems that could track a flying insect from orbit. Above them, Commander Yulthra watched the tactical displays with satisfaction. Multiple successful landings confirmed. No resistance encountered. As expected, without their technology, they're helpless. But back at Base Echo, Chen was proving that humans were anything but helpless. She surveyed her troops, Marines armed with compound bows, combat knives, and what could only be described as an enthusiast's collection of historical weapons. The irony wasn't lost on her. Humanity's past was about to become these aliens' worst nightmare. "Remember, folks," she addressed her unit, chalk dust from their improvised communications boards still on her hands, "the more advanced the civilization, the harder they fall when you take away their toys. We're Marines, we make do, we adapt, we overcome." She picked up a crossbow, testing its weight. "And today, we're going to teach these bugs about the last 5,000 years of human warfare, all at once." The first sign that something was terribly wrong came when squad leader Vexatal lost contact with his forward reconnaissance unit. One moment they were reporting all clear, the next, silence. Not the silence of damaged communications equipment, but the absolute silence of death. "Impossible," he chittered nervously. "Their weapons are disabled." The answer to his confusion came whistling through the air, a perfectly aimed arrow piercing the joint between helmet and thorax plate of his second-in-command. The Drachnid soldier dropped without a sound, green ichor staining the forest floor. "Projectile weapons," Vextal screeched. "They're using projectile whip—" He never finished the sentence. A falling log trap, ancient in design but devastating in execution, crushed 3 of his soldiers. The humans had somehow rigged the entire forest with primitive mechanical traps. No electronics, no sensors to detect, just ruthlessly simple physics. Across the globe, similar scenes played out with devastating effect. In the Vietnamese jungle, a squad of Drachnid troops found their advanced sensors useless against guerrilla fighters who had learned their craft from grandparents. The humans simply covered themselves in mud, leaves, and waited. Their heat signatures matched the jungle perfectly, a concept alien to the Drachnids' understanding of warfare. "How do they just disappear?" a frustrated Drachnid commander demanded, moments before a sharpened bamboo spike trap claimed another victim. In the Scottish Highlands, the aliens learned about the human concept of improvised explosives. Their armor, designed to withstand plasma bolts and energy weapons, proved surprisingly vulnerable to the precise application of fertilizer and diesel fuel. The thunderous explosion sent fragments of alien technology raining across the heather. "They're making weapons from their waste products," reported a horrified soldier to high command. "Every human dwelling is potentially an arsenal." The urban warfare was worse. In the narrow streets of Rome, Drachnid forces found themselves fighting an enemy that understood something they didn't. Cities aren't just battlegrounds, they're weapons themselves. Centuries-old cobblestones became projectiles. Narrow alleys turned into killing zones. Every window potentially hid a sniper with a compound bow. Zaxathor, directing operations from what was left of Fort Bradley, received increasingly panicked reports from his field units. "Sir, humans are attacking us with sharpened metal bars. The primitives are using something called piano wire across the streets. They've weaponized their local wildlife. The quadruped companions they call dogs are tracking our movements." But it was the psychological warfare that truly began breaking the Drachnid resolve. Humans, it seemed, had mastered the art of terror long before they developed technology. In the dead of night, human soldiers would creep close to alien encampments and whisper through the darkness. They learned quickly that Drachnid auditory sensors, designed for battlefield communications, were hypersensitive to certain frequencies. The humans exploited this mercilessly, using everything from war cries to bagpipes. "The noise!" screamed one soldier, clawing at his acoustic sensors. "They're weaponizing sound itself!" Commander Yilthra received a particularly disturbing report from an elite unit in Mongolia. The humans there had reverted to ancient horseback warfare tactics, appearing from nowhere, striking with primitive weapons and vanishing into the steppes. The unit's commander was practically incoherent. "They're faster without vehicles. How are they faster without vehicles? And the four-legged beasts they ride, they don't show up on our targeting systems as threats. Our combat algorithms don't recognize them as weapons." The breaking point for many Drachnid soldiers came in close combat. Their species had evolved beyond physical combat millennia ago, relying instead on advanced weaponry. Humans, on the other hand, had preserved and refined the art of hand-to-hand combat into a terrifying variety of styles. A security recording from a fallen base showed a human female, barely half the size of a Drachnid warrior, using something called jujitsu to literally dismantle an armored soldier. The footage became notorious among the invasion forces, especially the part where she explained cheerfully to her dying opponent how the laws of leverage don't care about technological advancement. In his command center, Zaxathor watched as another tactical display went dark. "How?" he demanded of no one in particular. "How are they doing this? We disabled their weapons." His intelligence officer, sporting a bandage from a recent encounter with something humans called a slingshot, cleared his throat nervously. "Sir, preliminary analysis suggests we may have made a crucial error. We assumed their technology was their strength. And, sir, their technology was apparently holding them back. By disabling it, we forced them to fight the way they've been fighting for thousands of years. Ways our tactical computers have no reference for. Ways we never prepared for." As if to punctuate this assessment, an arrow tipped with a strange burning liquid that stuck to armor like glue arced through a window. The resulting chaos proved that even the most advanced fire suppression systems struggled against something as primitive as Greek fire. "Sir," the intelligence officer continued, ducking behind a console, "humans don't just adapt to warfare. They enjoy it. They turn everything into a weapon. The environment, their tools, even their cultural practices. Did you know they have something called paintball where they practice combat for recreation?" Zaxathor's mandibles clicked in distress. A distant explosion, followed by the distinctive twang of a catapult, echoed through the command center. Somewhere, humans were reconstructing medieval siege engines. "Send word to all units," he ordered. "Full sensor sweeps for any human activity, no matter how primitive it appears. And someone figure out why our motion detectors don't register these horse creatures. I want to know how they're using pre-industrial beasts to outmaneuver our hover tanks." Another explosion rocked the building. This time the intelligence officer recognized the distinct smell of black powder. Somewhere out there, humans were manufacturing gunpowder from scratch. "Perhaps," he offered weakly, "we should have studied their history before disabling their technology." Zaxathor really should have seen it coming. All the signs were there: the too quiet forest, the conspicuous lack of resistance, the suspiciously well-maintained trail leading to what his tactical display identified as an abandoned human military facility. But hubris, as the humans would say, is a witch. Forward, he ordered his elite unit, mandibles clicking with anticipation. The primitive resistance ends today. We'll show them what real warriors... The first trap was embarrassingly simple, a net. Not an energy net, not a gravity well, just a plain net made of reinforced rope, probably pilfered from the facility's climbing equipment. It caught 3 of his soldiers, hoisting them into the air with nothing but counterweights and pulleys. "Scatter!" Zaxithor commanded, but it was too late. Lieutenant Chen's voice rang out from somewhere in the trees. "Welcome to basic training, bugs. Today's lesson, Human Warfare 101. The forest erupted into chaos, glass bottles filled with flaming liquid shattered against alien armor, spreading burning fuel that their environmental systems couldn't handle. The Drachnids' temperature-regulated suits, designed to withstand the vacuum of space, began cooking their occupants alive. "Impossible!" screamed a soldier, trying to extinguish the primitive accelerant. "Their weapons are disabled. We verified..." "Funny thing about Molotov cocktails," Chen's voice echoed again, closer this time. "They were invented because humans couldn't afford tanks. Sometimes the best solutions don't need batteries." Zaxithor watched in horror as his supposedly elite unit fell apart. Their advanced targeting systems, designed to track energy weapons and high-speed projectiles, were useless against the simple physics of tripwires and falling logs. Every piece of their supposedly superior technology was being countered by solutions invented before electricity. "Section 3 report," he barked into his communicator. Static answered. "Section 4, anyone? Looking for these guys?" A human soldier emerged from behind a tree, holding up a handful of communication devices stripped from fallen Drachnid soldiers. He was wearing what appeared to be a ghillie suit made from actual local vegetation. Their bioscanners had probably registered him as part of the forest. The trap had been sprung perfectly. Chen's Marines had surrounded them while appearing as nothing more than background organic matter on their sensors. The humans weren't trying to hide from technology. They were hiding using the planet itself. "Close quarters," Zaxithor ordered his remaining troops. "They can't match our natural strength." That, as it turned out, was his biggest mistake. Lieutenant Chen personally demonstrated why this was a terrible assumption. She emerged from the undergrowth like a predator, moving with a fluid grace that their combat computers couldn't predict. The first Drachnid soldier swung at her with his primary arms, a textbook combat move taught in their academies. She slipped inside his reach, used his own momentum against him, and somehow ended up on his back, applying pressure to joints that the Drachnid armor designers had never considered vulnerable. "Fun fact," she grunted as the alien's exoskeleton cracked. "Humans have been finding ways to take down bigger opponents since we lived in caves. We call it leverage. Physics doesn't care about your tech level." The remaining Drachnids watched in horror as their comrades fell to what could only be described as a devastating display of various Earth martial arts. One soldier was dispatched with a judo throw that used his own anti-gravity stabilizers against him. Another learned about capoeira the hard way when a kick bypassed his shield harmonics because it didn't register as a weapon. "Fall back," Zaxithor ordered, genuine fear creeping into his voice. "Regroup at the..." He never finished the order. Something small and fast, he later learned it was called Ebola, tangled his legs. As he crashed to the ground, he had a perfect view of his soldiers being systematically taken apart by humans using fighting techniques that predated written history. "Command," he screamed into his emergency beacon. "The humans, they're not fighting fair." The response from command was equally panicked. Similar reports were coming in from all over the planet. In the Arabian desert, Bedouin fighters were using ancient hunting techniques to ambush Drachnid patrols. In the Arctic, Inuit warriors were emerging from ice tunnels that their sensors couldn't penetrate. Each region had its own ancient combat methods, preserved and now terrifyingly relevant. Chen approached the fallen commander, twirling what appeared to be a metal staff. "You know what your biggest mistake was?" she asked, almost conversationally. "You assumed that because we had advanced weapons, we'd forgotten our old ones. Truth is, humans never forget ways to fight. We just add new ones to the collection." The remaining Drachnid soldiers, though still capable of movement, were retreating in chaos. Their powerful weapons, designed for high-tech warfare, proved comically ineffective against humans who simply refused to fight the way they were supposed to. Command, Zaxathor transmitted weakly, watching his elite unit flee from humans, armed with what were essentially sticks and stones. We may have miscalculated, severely. Chen knelt beside him, her expression almost pitying. Here's the thing about humans and warfare, she explained as her Marines efficiently gathered up alien weapons and communication devices. We're not actually good at it because of our technology. We're good at it because we'll use absolutely anything that works. Right now, your fancy tech doesn't work. Guess what that leaves us with? She gestured at the forest around them where her soldiers were already stripping useful components from fallen Drachnid armor. Some were experimenting with captured alien metal, testing its suitability for forging new weapons. 5,000 years of combat experience, she continued, and you just gave us a reason to dust off all our greatest hits. Congratulations. You didn't disable our weapons. You just reminded us that everything is a weapon. Commander Ylthra's command center had devolved into what humans would call a total clusterfunk. Holographic displays flickered with increasingly desperate reports from ground forces, each more absurd than the last. Base 7 under attack by humans on four-legged beasts. They're using long-pointed sticks. The targeting systems can't... Static. Sector 12 reporting. They're throwing rocks at us, but not normal rocks, heated rocks. They've built something called a trebuchet and another transmission lost. Ylthra's antenna twitched violently as she processed the incoming disasters. How, she demanded of her tactical officers, how are we losing to creatures who think hitting things with sharpened metal is advanced warfare? A junior officer cleared his throat nervously. Commander, you might want to see this. The main screen displayed footage from what had been their most fortified position in the region humans called Mongolia. A wave of mounted warriors, actual biological creatures with humans on their backs, was overwhelming Drachnid defensive positions. Their advanced shield generators, calibrated to stop energy weapons and high-velocity projectiles, were useless against the simple physics of 1,000 pounds of horse and human hitting them at full gallop. Those primitive mammals are bypassing our shield harmonics, the base commander screamed. They're not registering as weapons. They're just running into us. Really hard. Really hurt. The transmission cut off as a cavalry charge literally trampled the command post. From the American continent, another frantic report. They've developed projectile weapons that don't need power. They're using something called compound bows. It's just bent wood and string, but they're penetrating our armor joints. How are they aiming without targeting computers? Status report, Ylthra demanded. Her intelligence chief's carapace was notably dulled from stress. We've lost 30% of our ground forces. The humans, they're not fighting like a proper civilization. They're using tactics from their entire history, all at once. We're seeing techniques from every era of their development. The displays showed the evidence. In Europe, humans had reconstructed medieval siege engines. The Drachnid armor, designed to withstand energy weapons, proved surprisingly vulnerable to rocks thrown really hard by counterweight machines. South American units reporting heavy casualties to something called blow darts, an officer announced. They're using neurotoxins from local fauna. Our medical databases don't even recognize these poisons. In what had been their secure landing zone, humans had somehow built a forge. They were melting down captured Drachnid armor and turning it into decidedly low-tech but devastatingly effective weapons. The irony of aliens being stabbed with swords made from their own advanced alloys was not lost on anyone. Commander, the intelligence chief continued, we're detecting massive human movements in what they call Britain. They've rebuilt something called a longbow core. The tactical display showed the results. Thousands of arrows, their metal tips crafted from salvaged alien technology, darkening the sky. The simple projectiles slipped through energy shields calibrated for much higher velocities, finding every joint and seam in the Drachnid armor. The humans in the Arctic regions are using weapons made of frozen water, another officer reported, mandibles clicking in disbelief. Just frozen water, shaped into points, and they're hunting our patrols using techniques developed for tracking creatures called seals. Ylthra watched as another base went dark. The humans had somehow weaponized local insect populations against them. The Drachnids, naturally armored against most threats, found themselves completely vulnerable to Earth's tiny warriors, who knew that creatures called fire ants could find their way into sealed combat armor. They're adapting our own technology against us, the intelligence chief noted, with horrified fascination. Look at this. The display showed humans in the Middle East using salvaged anti-gravity units to make their camels fly. The Drachnid combat computers, faced with charging aerial cavalry, wielding traditional Bedouin swords, simply crashed. New reports from the Asian continent, an officer announced. They're killing our soldiers with sticks, just sticks, but they're hitting us really precisely, and those are not just sticks, interrupted a cultural specialist they'd brought aboard. Those are ancient martial arts weapons. They've been perfecting these techniques for thousands of years. The command center fell silent as they watched footage of a human martial artist systematically disassembling a Drachnid combat robot with what appeared to be two short wooden poles. "Commander," the intelligence chief said quietly, "I believe we may have made a tactical error. When we disabled their advanced technology, we assumed we were stripping away their strength." Instead, Yilthra finished, watching another base fall to what appeared to be humans wielding improvised thermite charges. "We forced them to fall back on combat techniques they've been perfecting since they learned to walk upright." A new alert flashed. Somewhere in the Pacific, humans had remembered how to build Greek fire. The resulting inferno was visible from orbit. "It gets worse," the cultural specialist added. "They're teaching each other. Different human cultures are sharing combat techniques, they're combining them. That last attack, it used Asian martial arts, Native American stealth techniques, and European metallurgy. They're innovating." As if to emphasize this point, a new report showed humans in Africa using captured Drachnid anti-gravity technology to enhance their traditional spear-throwing techniques. The results were messy. Yilthra's mandibles clicked in what might have been a sigh. "Send word to all remaining forces. Full tactical retreat. And someone please explain to High Command how we lost a war to creatures who think hitting things with a really big rock is a valid combat strategy." Actually, the cultural specialist noted, they have 37 different traditional fighting styles just for hitting things with rocks. And that's not counting the ones they're inventing right now. Lieutenant Chen found Zaxathor exactly where she expected, in the command bunker of Fort Bradley, surrounded by flickering holographic displays showing the systematic collapse of the Drachnid invasion force. He'd shed his damaged combat armor, revealing his natural exoskeleton. "Come to finish this, human," he chittered, mandibles clicking in what might have been resignation or amusement. "Actually," Chen twirled her staff, now enhanced with salvaged pieces of Drachnid technology, "I came to thank you." "Thank me?" Zaxathor's four eyes blinked in confusion. "You reminded us of something important." Chen stepped forward, dropping into a fighting stance that looked deceptively casual. "Humans got soft, relying on our fancy toys. You made us remember who we really are." Zaxathor launched himself at her with lightning speed, his natural weapons, evolved over millions of years, slicing through the air. Chen moved like water, flowing around his attack. The staff, a perfect fusion of ancient design and alien metal, cracked against his carapace. "We're not warriors because of our weapons," Chen continued, ducking under a swipe that would have taken her head off. "We're warriors because we turn everything into a weapon." The battle became a dance Drachnid evolutionary perfection against human adaptability. Zaxathor's natural armor met techniques developed over centuries of human combat evolution. Every time he thought he had her pattern mapped, she switched styles. Kung Fu became Judo, became Krav Maga. "Impossible," he gasped, after she turned his own momentum against him again. "Your species, you fight like you faced everything." "That's because we have." Chen swept his legs, a move that would have made her Krav Maga instructor proud. "Humans fought everything on Earth before we even invented writing, including ourselves, especially ourselves." Above them, the last Drachnid ships were breaking orbit, their tactical computers overwhelmed by the sheer variety of combat techniques being employed against them. Humans had turned their own technology against them in ways their combat algorithms couldn't process. "You know what your real mistake was?" Chen asked as Zaxathor struggled to rise. "You thought disabling our technology would weaken us. Instead, you forced us to remember every single way we've ever learned to fight. 5,000 years of combat evolution all at once." Zaxathor looked at her with something approaching understanding. "You're not just adaptable," he realized. "You're collectors of ways to fight." "Bingo." Chen offered him a hand up, a gesture that confused his cultural databases. "Now, Want to surrender properly, or should I show you what happens when you combine Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with captured anti-gravity tech? Through the bunker's window, they could see humans on horseback chasing down retreating Drachnid forces while wielding energy-enhanced medieval weapons. Perhaps, Zaxathor admitted, accepting her help, we should have studied your history before attempting this invasion. Probably, Chen agreed cheerfully. Official report to Drachnid High Command. Classification ultra-secret. Earth invasion attempt. Status catastrophic failure. Species classification. Update. Humans have been reclassified from Type 2 developing civilization to Omega-level threat. Do not engage. Summary of findings. Previous assessment of human military capability was catastrophically flawed. Technology level is not indicative of combat effectiveness. Species displays unprecedented adaptability in warfare. Each human appears to be a walking arsenal of combat knowledge. They view military defeat as a learning opportunity. Notable observations. Current human activities include reverse engineering our anti-gravity technology to enhance their martial arts, forging weapons from our advanced alloys using medieval techniques, teaching each other combat methods from their entire history, converting our abandoned bases into what they call museums and training facilities. Recommendations: 1. Immediate establishment of quarantine zone around Sol system. 2. Warning beacons to be placed at all approach vectors. 3. Revision of all combat protocols regarding primitive species. 4. Mandatory study of human military history for all tactical officers. Final note. In perhaps the greatest irony, by attempting to disable their technology, we force them to demonstrate why they never needed it in the first place. As one human commander noted, "Thanks for the remedial course in our own history, we needed that." Warning to all species, do not attempt invasion of Earth. Their lack of advanced technology is not a weakness, it is merely their backup plan.